The Art of War by Sun Tzu. Picture this. You're standing on a stone terrace overlooking an enormous courtyard in ancient China over 25 centuries ago. The morning air is crisp and still. Next to you stands King Ho Lu of Wu, powerful, ambitious, with eyes that miss nothing. He turns to a slight, unassuming figure beside him. This is Sun Tzu. The king has just finished reading Sun Tzu's compact masterpiece on strategy, all 13 chapters, and while he's fascinated, he's not quite convinced. So he asks, almost playfully, "Your principles sound brilliant on paper, but do they actually work in the real world? Can you prove it? And here's the real test. Could you even apply them to women?" Sun Tzu's response is characteristically brief. "I can." The king, perhaps smirking at the audacity, orders 180 of his favorite concubines brought into the courtyard. This should be entertaining. Sun Tzu calmly divides them into two groups and appoints the king's two most cherished concubines as their commanders. He hands each woman a spear and begins explaining the drill. "Do you understand the difference between front and back, between your left hand and your right?" he asks. The women giggle nervously and nod. "Excellent," Sun Tzu continues in his measured tone. "When I command, eyes front, you look straight ahead. Left turn means face your left hand. Right turn means face your right hand." He walks them through everything methodically, marking the drill ground with battle axes. Then, to the beat of a drum, he calls out his first command, "Right turn." The courtyard explodes, but not with military precision, with laughter. The women dissolve into giggles, treating the whole thing like an amusing game. Sun Tzu's expression doesn't change. He addresses them calmly. If commands aren't clear, if orders aren't properly understood, the fault lies with the general. So he explains everything again, slowly, making sure every detail is crystal clear. This time he orders, "Left turn!" Again, nothing but laughter ripples through the ranks. From his elevated perch, the king is probably grinning. This is turning into quite the spectacle. But something has shifted in Sun Tzu's demeanor. His eyes have hardened. When he speaks this time, his voice cuts through the air like a blade. If commands aren't clear, that's the general's fault. But when orders are perfectly clear and soldiers still disobey, that's on their officers. And with that, he orders the execution of the two company leaders, the king's favorite concubines. The king's smile vanishes. He frantically sends a messenger rushing down the steps. "Stop this immediately. I'm completely satisfied with your ability to command troops. Please, without these two women, even the finest wine will taste like water to me. Do not execute them." Sun Tzu receives the message and sends back a reply that makes the king's blood run cold. "Once I've been given authority as general, there are certain royal commands I cannot accept." The execution proceeds. He appoints the next two women in line as the new commanders. The drum sounds once more, and this time, when Sun Tzu gives his commands, something extraordinary happens. The women move as one, turning right, turning left, kneeling, rising, with flawless, silent precision, not a single mistake, not a single sound. The game was over. Now they understood. This chilling story introduces us to Sun Tzu and unlocks the essence of his masterpiece, The Art of War. This isn't simply a manual about fighting. It's a profound exploration of victory psychology, the transformative power of discipline, and the elegant art of winning before the battle even starts. For over 2,000 years, everyone from generals to business leaders, from coaches to negotiators, has studied these lessons. Today we're diving deep into the timeless wisdom of this remarkable little book. And here's what I promise you. By the end, you'll realize this isn't about conquering others. It's about mastering yourself. You'll discover how to transform weaknesses into strengths, navigate any conflict with intelligence and grace, and achieve your goals with minimal struggle. This is strategic thinking at its finest, and it all begins with one elegant, powerful principle. The greatest victory is the one that requires no battle at all. So where do we start unpacking a mind like Sun Tzu's? The first revelation is this. For him, conflict wasn't something to charge into head first. It was actually a last resort, evidence that strategy had already failed somewhere along the line. He wrote that war is a matter of life and death, a path leading either to safety or complete ruin, and therefore demands your most serious attention. Sounds obvious, right? But think about how often we leap into arguments, competitions, or challenges without really thinking things through. We default to brute force, to just grinding harder. Sun Tzu would call this amateur hour. The master strategist, the true artist, wins in an entirely different way. It begins with what he called laying plans. Before you make any move, you need to understand the landscape. And he wasn't just talking about geographical features. He identified 5 constant factors that determine the outcome of any conflict, whether you're launching a startup, leading a project team, or navigating a difficult relationship. First is the moral law. This is your why, the purpose that unites you with your team, making people willing to follow you anywhere because they genuinely believe in the mission. If your people aren't completely aligned with the goal, you've already lost half the battle. A team, powered by shared purpose, becomes nearly unstoppable. Second is heaven, not fate, but conditions beyond your control, timing, weather, the season. In modern terms, think of economic conditions, emerging trends, or sudden market shifts. The wise leader doesn't fight these forces. They understand and harness them. You don't sail straight into a storm. You wait for favorable winds. Third is earth, the actual ground beneath your feet, the environment you're operating in, the terrain, distances, dangers, and opportunities. In your life, this is your competitive landscape. Who else is playing? What are the rules? Where are the narrow passes you can defend? And where's the open ground where you're vulnerable? Understanding terrain means you get to choose where the battle happens, not your opponent. Fourth is the commander. That's you, your character. Sun Tzu said a commander needs wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. You must be intelligent, but also trustworthy. You need to genuinely care for your people, while having the courage to make hard calls. And as he demonstrated to the king, you must be strict enough that your orders are actually followed. This isn't tyranny. It's creating a culture where everyone knows exactly what's expected. Fifth is method and discipline, your organization, your system, clear roles, chain of command, resource management. A brilliant idea without execution systems is just a fantasy. A talented team without organization descends into chaos. Before any engagement, Sun Tzu would carefully weigh these 5 factors for both sides. Which leader has stronger moral authority? Who's the better commander? Who understands heaven and earth more deeply? Which side is more disciplined? By asking these questions, he claimed he could predict victory or defeat before a single weapon was raised. This leads to one of the most famous lines ever written on strategy. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory you'll also suffer a defeat. If you know neither yourself nor the enemy, you'll lose every single battle. This is your foundation, the deep reflective work that happens before action, But once you have this knowledge, how do you actually use it? This is where Sun Tzu's genius truly shines. His answer is elegantly simple. All warfare is based on deception. Now, this isn't about dishonesty or lacking honor. It's about outthinking your opponent, controlling how they perceive the situation. He wrote, "When you can attack, appear unable. When using your forces, seem inactive. When near, make them think you're far away. When far away, make them believe you're close." Think of a skilled magician directing your attention to one hand, while the real magic happens with the other. Sun Tzu taught that you should constantly be shaping your opponent's perception of reality. Fake disorder to lure them into a trap. Pretend weakness so they become overconfident and careless. Provoke a hot-tempered opponent into rash action. One of his descendants, another brilliant general named Sun Tzu, executed this perfectly. He was warring with the state of Wei, whose general, Peng Chuan, believed soldiers from Qi were cowards. Sun Tzu decided to weaponize this prejudice. After crossing into Wei territory, he ordered his army to light 100,000 cooking fires the first night. The second night, only 50,000. The third night, just 20,000. Peng Chuan, pursuing closely, saw this and thought, "I knew it. These Qi soldiers are deserting left and right. Their numbers have dropped by more than half." His confidence soaring, he raced ahead with only his elite troops, leaving the rest behind. But Sun Tzu had led him straight into a narrow mountain pass. He'd stripped bark from a tree and carved into it, "Under this tree shall Peng Chuan die." Then he positioned his best archers with orders to shoot the moment they saw light. When Peng Chuan arrived after dark, he noticed the writing and lit a torch to read it. The instant he did, 1,000 arrows flew from the darkness, throwing his army into complete chaos. Sun Tzu didn't win through superior numbers. He won by controlling what his enemy believed, by turning arrogance into a fatal weakness. This captures the essence of what Sun Tzu called attacking by stratagem. The highest form of warfare, he argued, is disrupting the enemy's plans before they can execute them. Next best is preventing their forces from uniting. After that comes attacking their army in the field, and the absolute worst strategy? Besieging a fortified city. Why? Because sieges are pure contests of brute force. They exhaust your troops, drain your resources, and even victory comes at enormous cost. Sun Tzu constantly pushes us toward the smarter path, the more efficient route to victory. This brings us to his most powerful teaching, the heart of his entire philosophy. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. This is the ultimate goal, not crushing your opponent, but winning so intelligently that fighting becomes unnecessary. You outmaneuver them so completely, they have no choice but to yield. This is victory through wisdom, not violence. To achieve this, you need to understand what Sun Tzu calls Cheng, the direct, and Qi, the indirect. Cheng is the obvious, expected move, the frontal assault. Qi is the surprise, the unexpected maneuver from an angle they didn't see coming. In battle, he explained, you might use direct methods to engage the enemy, but you'll need indirect methods to actually win. These two approaches flow into each other like a circle, with no beginning or end. A feint, meant to be indirect if discovered, becomes direct. A direct attack can set up a devastating indirect blow. The master strategist constantly blends the two, keeping opponents guessing, confused, unable to predict the real intention. And when you do strike, it must be with concentrated power. Sun Tzu uses gorgeous natural imagery. The quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon. It waits, observes, then strikes with absolute precision and commitment. Energy is like a bent crossbow, power coiled and waiting. Decision is the release of the trigger. The momentum of a victorious army is like a round stone rolled down a mountain thousands of feet high. It becomes an unstoppable force. This isn't just physical power. It's psychological momentum, creating a feeling of inevitability for your side and for your opponent. This is why Sun Tzu constantly emphasizes attacking weakness, not strength. Military tactics are like water, he wrote. Water in its natural course runs away from high places and hastens downward. So in war, avoid what is strong and strike at what is weak. Think about this in your own life. How often do we try solving problems by attacking the strongest point? We try convincing the most stubborn person or tackling the hardest part of a project first. Sun Tzu would say you're wasting precious energy. Find the weak point, the path of least resistance. Like water, be flexible, adapt to the terrain, and your victory becomes effortless. This adaptability is crucial. The winning general isn't the one with a rigid, perfect plan. It's the one who can modify tactics based on the opponent. He says you should never repeat the exact tactics that won you a previous victory. Why? Because your opponent will expect it. The world constantly changes, so your methods must evolve with it. Of course, none of this strategy matters without a strong, disciplined team to execute it. This brings us back to the human side of leadership. Sun Tzu understood that an army isn't a machine. It's a collection of people with fears, hopes, and motivations. He famously wrote, "Regard your soldiers as your children, and they will follow you into the deepest valleys. Look upon them as your beloved sons, and they will stand by you even unto death." This is genuine leadership benevolence. You must truly care for your people's well-being. But, and this is the critical balance, you cannot be soft. He continues, "If, however, you are indulgent, but unable to make your authority felt, kind-hearted but unable to enforce your commands, then your soldiers must be likened to spoiled children. They are useless for any practical purpose." This is the paradox of great leadership, deep care combined with iron discipline. Your team needs to know you have their back, but they also need to know that standards are high and will be enforced. Sun Tzu also warned against 5 dangerous faults that can destroy a leader, and these aren't just for military commanders. They're traps for anyone in a leadership position. First, recklessness, which leads to destruction. This is the leader who takes foolish risks without thinking. Second, cowardice, which leads to capture. This is the leader too afraid to seize opportunities. Third, a hasty temper, which can be provoked by insults. An emotional leader is an easily manipulated leader. Fourth, a delicacy of honor, which is oversensitive to shame. This is the leader more concerned with reputation than results. And fifth, over-concern for followers, which exposes you to constant worry and trouble. This might sound strange, but he means a leader so afraid of their people experiencing any hardship that they sacrifice larger strategic goals for short-term comfort, ultimately causing greater suffering when the mission fails. A leader who avoids these 5 faults, who balances compassion with discipline, and who has mastered strategic thinking, seems nearly unbeatable. But there's one final piece, what he calls the sovereign's most precious faculty, foreknowledge. And how do we gain this foreknowledge? Not from supernatural sources or mathematical formulas, but from other people. This is why Sun Tzu dedicates his final chapter to the use of spies. Now, for us, spies might not mean secret agents. It means information, intelligence. Understanding what your competition is planning, knowing the morale of your own team, getting honest, unfiltered feedback from your customers. Information is the lifeblood of strategy. Acting without it means operating blind and deaf. Sun Tzu describes 5 types of spies, which we can think of as 5 channels of information. Local spies are people from the area, your customers, the locals who understand the terrain better than anyone. Inward spies are officials on the enemy side you can win over. Today, this might mean understanding the internal politics of a rival company, or getting insights from former employees. Converted spies are the enemy's own intelligence sources whom you've turned to your side. These are the most valuable because they understand the enemy's system from the inside. Doomed spies are your own agents to whom you give false information. When they're inevitably captured, they'll mislead the enemy with strategic disinformation. And surviving spies are classic intelligence gatherers, the ones who go in, collect information, and return safely. The master strategist weaves these 5 sources together into an intelligence network so comprehensive that their victories seem like magic to outsiders. They always seem to know the enemy's next move, always seem to be in the right place at the right time. But it's not magic. It's the result of deep, relentless commitment to gathering information. So when we step back and look at the complete picture, what does the art of war really teach us? It teaches that victory isn't an event, it's a process. It begins with deep self-knowledge and thorough understanding of your opponent and environment. It's achieved not through brute force, but through deception, adaptability, and intelligent application of direct and indirect pressure. It's led by a commander who is both compassionate and disciplined, who avoids the 5 deadly faults. And it's powered by constant information flow that provides the foreknowledge to act with confidence and precision. It's a philosophy of efficiency, achieving the greatest results with the least conflict and waste. It's a way of thinking that allows you to see the world as a grand interconnected system and navigate its challenges with the calm, quiet confidence of a master. It is, ultimately, the art of winning. Isn't it remarkable? A book written on bamboo strips 25 centuries ago feels incredibly relevant today. Strip away the references to chariots and spears, and what remains is a blueprint for strategic thinking as applicable now as it was in ancient China's warring states. What I find most striking about The Art of War is that it's fundamentally a book about peace. That might sound contradictory, but Sun Tzu's entire philosophy aims at avoiding destructive, head-on conflict. He saw war as a colossal failure, a terrible waste of life, resources, and time. His goal was always achieving objectives so skillfully that battle itself would become unnecessary. He teaches us that the most powerful person in any room isn't the loudest or most aggressive. It's the one who is calm, prepared, and sees the whole board. In our world that often celebrates relentless hustle, confrontation, and crushing the competition, Sun Tzu's wisdom feels refreshing. He reminds us that true strength lies not in force but in intelligence, not in aggression but in adaptability, not in seeking glory but in achieving quiet, decisive victory that preserves resources and relationships. So how can you, someone ambitious and on the cusp of life's great journey, apply this ancient wisdom right now? Let me offer a few practical starting points. First, before your next big test, game, or important interview, take a moment to do what Sun Tzu would do: lay plans. Ask yourself about the 5 factors. What's my moral law? My ultimate goal? My true why? What's the heaven? Is the timing right? What are the external conditions? What's the earth? The environment? The other players? The rules? How am I as the commander? Prepared, calm, confident, but not arrogant? And what's my method? Do I have a clear plan? A system to follow? Just 10 minutes thinking through these questions will put you miles ahead of anyone who just wings it. Second, practice finding the indirect path. The next time you face a problem, your instinct will probably be to attack it head-on. Pause. Ask yourself, what's the weak point here? What's the unexpected approach? How can I be like water and flow around this obstacle instead of smashing through it? This shift in mindset, from brute force to strategic thinking, is your first step toward mastering your own life. Finally, embrace the idea that information is power. Be endlessly curious. Know yourself. Know your enemy. Study your field. Understand your competitors, not with hostility, but with analytical detachment. Listen deeply to the people you hope to serve. The more you know, the less you have to guess. And the less you guess, the more often you'll win. That was our journey into the art of war by Sun Tzu. We've explored the highlights today, but honestly, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is discovered when you walk the territory yourself. The true magic happens in those quiet reading moments, when a particular story or simple phrase hits you unexpectedly. This podcast is designed to help you decide if this book deserves your precious time. If anything we've discussed today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely transform how you see the world and your place in it. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and feel a bit wiser and more prepared for the challenges ahead, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.